We have been battling with drug dealers and gangs that are grooming our children for many years.
We feel powerless in this country. As a community, we feel powerless.
It's wiping off generations of Somali young people and children. There is no safe environment for children to grow up and thrive anymore.
These women have come together to talk about the drug dealing and knife crime blighting their neighbourhoods in North London. Some say their sons have been groomed by gangs into dealing. Others have already seen their teenage sons die. In desperation, they are now speaking out publicly for the first time to try and understand what's happened to their children in the country they came to for safety.
How do you protect a child from a predator who's in front of your door? How do you protect that child?
They believe their children are being brainwashed by drug dealers.
You see that child is not longer the child who was so interested in his education, future plans. So you just see that child is completely busy in his head, and you are trying to wonder what has changed.
Many of these mothers say however hard they try, they can't prevent their young teenage sons from being targeted.
They normally are getting invited by where they are supposed to be safe, including football spaces, in the parks, near the school. The groomers might get access to one, and that one will recruit all his friends, and hence a whole neighborhood falls victim.
As soon as they groom your child, they're making your child to become against you. So when your child, he say to you, don't tell me anything, what can you say?
Not only do the mothers feel their sons are lost to them, they actually go physically missing for days, as the gangs send them outside of London to sell drugs, in a process known as county lines. The Children's Commissioner estimates at least 4,000 teenagers in London alone are being exploited in this way.
It's a nightmare. I mean, I woke up to that nightmare in 2016, where my son suddenly gone missing for 4 days. I reached out to the police and I said, my son is missing. I was told to sit at home and wait. That wasn't acceptable to me. So I went out looking for all the places that I was told he may be at. What I wanted was my child to be found because he was vulnerable, 15-year-old. I was constantly heartbroken and crying, and all I can think of is my son being harmed somewhere in the country. And that is the experience that many parents are also going through.
And so these women feel they have to take matters into their own hands.
So Amina, tell us what happened to you and your son.
أنا يريد تجلس مسافة صدري ويري صباح أنا يرنا وها مركب 15 بوها ونقرنا يميل والصعدة بقى أوكي يصدر بيري أنا ولا قاضي هم استت مقالة اللي يبغى.
She found out her son had been taken to Hertfordshire to work for drug dealers. So she and a group of mothers drove there to try and bring him back.
Police كانوا أطرني. markaan booliiska u tagnay booliiskii kolkii uu na soo raaco gartay aqalkii wuxuu noogu jawaabay waa danger baleyso ciidama gali karto markii aan ilaa waqti dambe joognaan dariiqa ka eegnay wax socda waan iskaga soo hoyanay midnight tahay.
Amina wasn't able to bring her son back. He eventually turned up at home a few days later. It's a pattern that's become all too familiar to these families.
So you're in this situation where you were having to drive around to go and find your sons.
They've tried everything, and obviously when your child is missing, you can't sleep. I had to take them around to these places.
Some have even taken the extraordinary step of moving their children to Somalia, despite the dangers there. The threat of terror is constant. Just a few days ago, an attack by Al-Shabaab in the capital left nearly a dozen people dead.
This idea that the only way you can protect your sons is to take them out of the country. That's something a lot of women have had to do in the community, isn't it?
They're not safe here. Even though that security and safety there is also a challenge, there at least you have a 50% chance of your child dying from killing or bombing or this or that. But here is zero chance. Once a child goes into and falls into that trap, they stand no chance.
Are their sons really safer on the streets of Somalia than in London? An impossible choice between gangs that have a hold over their children and the dangers of the nation they fled as refugees.
We came to this country to have a better life. What we are encountered was to another more worse than the war in Somalia, more death and destruction.
But many of their sons resist being taken abroad, staying in continued contact with gangs using social media, and they pressure their parents to return them to the UK. Amina is one of those parents.
Markii aan soo celiyay 19 days intaanu joogina kala doonaya mid lagu galiyay.
Some people will say, well, there must be something wrong with the families. There must be something wrong in the community for this to be happening. How do you feel about that?
I'm pretty angry. A majority of the families that are affected, they're just law-abiding, families from loving homes.
A lot of people will say to you it's about the Somali community, but this is beyond the Somali community. It's happening right across all nationality and ethnicity.
Who take the drugs? I think, I'm not afraid to say it, middle-class people take drugs. And they're criminalizing our young people. And the victim is us.
These women are trying their very best, but still feel powerless.
Young people are trapped. And once they are trapped, it's very difficult to get out of that trap because either their family member will be killed or they will be killed. It's as simple as that. And the government needs to wake up to the reality facing up down the country, particularly black boys.
Unable to stop the violence around them, for now they take solace in supporting each other.